tēnā rā koe te ao marama, koe rā nōna me kia koe hei koe. Ei nō hoki ngā mihi kia Gary ko tēnei te wā tuatahi, ka tai ari ki te mihi ati kia ia kia koe mō tō tūra maho. Me e rāti, ngā mihi me kia koe ia, ka tai anō tēnei, kia koe hone. O ti rā kia tātau e koe koe mai tēnei wā. Wāku anō tō wāki e tātou tēnei. Ai tau I o nei rungi a tātou katoa te wairu o ngā mātou tūpuna. Nā rātou e whakatakato te ara hei hiko I ngā mā tātou ngā tautina tikanga he oro takingi a tātou. Kia ngā kaunui I te hui nei I owa tātou mahi katoa I roto I te whono, te tika, te maramatanga. Me te aroha no tētei I tētei. E rongo papindia ki haramai te toki hauni e hui e tātou ki te ora rā tātou.
Aka tirati hei mauri ora. I te timatanga, ako te kupu ko te ato, no te kupu kei te pāpā e te rangatira, tēnei au ka mihi atu rā kia koe. E hore ea nei, o kupu whakamuri ki te whakapētai. Ki aia ko tātou matu I te rangi. Ka tika kāmi a kia koe te pāpā e te rangatira. Koutou rā, o te tara o te ika, ko tai mai tēnei rangi, no reira mi atu rā kia koe, kōrua-tahi, tēnā pūru. Huriro, I roto I te rao ngā kōrera wo me whakahoki ngā mihi ki po tātou ki tuheiti a pōta tau te perapero a te tuawhiti. Me ngā mana ki tango te runga rau ki runga ki aia me tono horangatira. A me te whare kāhui ari ki nui tonu, ki e rei rire hau, pai mai. Pai mai rire kia koe e te rangatira e hone, kua tai a tina ngā mai ki roto I tēnei ko tātou nei, hui ngia tēnei rangi. Hei ka hoe nei, a te aho tō tātou pāpā rangatira anaru, I roto I tēnei o mahi, tēnei au ka mihi atu rā kia koe, tēnā koe. O tira ngā manga tapu ngā o tapu, Noho tahi nei ke waini I mātou I roto I tēnei huihuinga. A tēnā koutou katoa ngā marae. Kua tai a tina ngā mai I roto I tēnei ko tātou nei kaupapa tēnā koutou. E te rangatira, your worship, Adrian, tēnei au ka mihi atu rā kia koe, a kōrua-tahi, ko James, hei kanui mai ko tātou nei kaunihera. I roto I tēnei huihuinga a Manawhenua. Tēnei au ka mihi atu rā kia kōrua, kia ahau anō, no reira tēnā koutou. O tira, e te he mana, ko whakaere tia nei tō tātou nei, kōrero tēnei rangi, tēnei ka mihi atu rā kia koe. A koe anō, e whore atu kumero ki te mea nui kia whakatau nei, ia koutou I roto tēnei te hui ngā tuatahi, o tēnei wahanga, no reira tēnā koutou.
Whakataurangi a ke te I tātua te Pāpua tēnei Te mauni O te aroha E horonga ki te kui Kua whakanaro I te po Te pōri ki te pō I o ti atu E ngā whakaoati heria Ki te rangi Hei huarahi atu Ti hei Mauri o
Kore toto I ngā kuri whakamutu ngā ki hono tātai hono. Kore mātou e wari tia rātou. E hinga nei, taka ki te wai, hinga ki te whare I roto I tēnei ngā āwhā mai te tai tokerau, te heringa taunga atu rā ki te tai tokerau, koutou rā o te tara o te ika. Rātou anō hoki ngā mate e hinga nei I roto I te rā āhuatanga. Rātou anō hoki ngā tini mate. E mate nei I roto I ngā kaupapa katoa o te ao. tērā a Ukraine, te tini te maha o ngā tangata he ngā tini. Anō rā kia te rū o te whenua, kei tā wahi, te kore mātou e ware tia kia rātou. Haere atu rā. Piti ono tātai hono tātou, te hongo ora kia tātou hurino, te nāputau, te nāputau.
Kia ora no tātou. Ai tautoko ngā mihi kia koe wati noa nei tu wheretia tō tātou. Ui i te ata nei, kia koe hoki, Gary, no i whakatau kia tātou, ara tō tātou. Rangatira nawa, hone ko tāu mai wangi ia mātou i tēnei ai tēnei ata. No reira, tautoko kia koe hoki te mana huia o te kaunihera, tēnei mehena kia koe, tātou ki ngā kaumari hurino, tēnā tātou katoa. Just before we start, I think we'll just introduce ourselves, go around as we have our tūmaki of the kingitanga here with us this morning. And it's an honour and a privilege to have Hone here joining us this morning. So we're going to start on my left, go around and introduce ourselves. So,
Hi, I'm Stephanie and I'm the Government Support Officer for Council. There are two of us here and I help with the meetings.
Tēnā rā te whare, tēnei nō te tua, tēnei mua mi koe te pāpai tūpirau tākana ata, mi tō tika koe, e roha tika, Harry, mo tāu nei, mi whakatau ai a tātou tēnei wā, te tia mana, te Manawhenua, anō rā ki te tua o te kingitanga kami atu kia koe. Koe tēnei ko tuatahi, tēnei tōku nei ingoa, e huri whakatuku Māti Haua, Manawhenua, ko mana tāu mata. Koe te kaitaka waena Māori, o te kaunihira nei, Matamata-Piako. I used to like to really extend those acknowledgements as well to lots of Māti, but I think our students, to lots of Gary, who set out also worship, Manawhenua, and to play hone, our tūmaki of the kingitanga. My name is Tuatahi Tene, and I am the Youth Liaison Officer here at Matamata-Piako Council. Alongside my colleagues here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Niall Baker. I'm the Policy Team Leader for Council and supporting this committee.
Tēnā tō tātou, nā te mariti iwi mātaki te wharai. Nei anō hoki nā kia koe, e au i tūwhera atu, nā mehi hoki kia koe e hone, i te wā kōrero ai, te takitau ai, tērā tā, whakaro hi au, tūmaki i te ahani, nā te hanu ahara. Nā mehi nau kia koe, i tō tūranga, i tērā o ngā whakawhamahi ahu mai, i tūhono e pai ere mai, te kaupapa nei, e kawe nei e koe, nā mehi ki a koe. Koe rā no, tēnei tāku, wati ngā mane, kia ora rā tāku.
Kia whakaitai o kakawari ngā mani a hau, hoku iwi, ngā te maru, ngā te piwi te maru. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou, o Jill Taylor ahau, nō Ngāti Tumutumu, our whakapapa through to Ngāti Haua is through Te Wharau, Te Kepa Te Wharau, and he married Ngāti Haua woman, Te Aorai. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora koutou. I am Julia Keskill. I am one of the kaimahi that work alongside our iwi trust, and so this is new learnings for me. And yeah, so thank you.
Mei nui ki te tanga ki maki. Ko
Tāwha o whātu tiri pai te mong, kia ora o te iwi. Nā te kiwi ki te hapi, ko kaifo te mara, ko lia whaipe ara.
For Andrea Junior ki Matamata-Piako. Pei kai mai kia hau ki te poari nā ki o Raukawa. The new job title, Regional Strategy Manager at Te Ura in the Pūtaki Taihātena.
Ka tira, ko Gary Thompson a hau, te tō horopū, tēnei kaunera, reira, no, mā te whao tēnei taha, mā te hau a te rātaha, ko waua nake. Kia ora rā.
Morning everyone, James Thomas, Deputy Mayor. I have had the privilege of being on this committee before, 3 years off, and I'll be forward to contributing once again.
Right, this is an opportunity to practice my view.
Why not?
Which I need to read it, sorry. Kia ora. No Matamata-Piako aho. I tipu ake aho ki Manawhenua. Ke matamata aho ero I ana. Hey, and I wrote this as District Councillor, so he koramatua ko Tūranga Mahi. No Adrian Wilcott. Takuinua. Try anyway. We'll get better. Kia ora tātou. Te te o tōku mahi, hei haere ki te tautoko e te tātou tuarki I rote I tana mahi, ko au tōna kuia, engari tēnei wara, ko au te tiamana o tēnei te Manawhenua. No Ngāti Haua, titi I taha tōku, engari te taha o tōku pāpā, no nai te rangi, engari ngā tūpuna I whakatupu I taku pāwha no tai tukurau, no Māpu. O reira, tēnei mehana kia tātou. Tēnei mehana kia koutou, I tū e mua I a tātou, I mua I tō tātou rana tēra tēnei ata. Kia ora tātou tātou.
Naka maari te whānau, ko tainu I te waka, ko waikata te awa, mana tautiri ka mauna. Taku tāmo ko te kiritanga ko te kauwhanganui, te kaupapa, a ko Ngāti Haua te iwi, ko waramu tamihana te tamata, ko ori tamihana a hau, ai mehi atu kia koutou kāpuni.
It's a rare opportunity. He doesn't get the same one, so yeah. There's
Been a long time since I've said my pipi how, that's for sure.
Thank you, Hone. Kia ora tātou. Just going to call, have we any apologies?
No, I can be late.
Hello?
Late, kind of late.
Oh, Hinarangi going to be late? And any other further apologies? Rani Chunga from Ngāti Haua. And Taho, our new Ngāti Paua, has sent his apologies in. So I'm going to move it, please.
Right.
Kia ora, Leo. Seconder. Thank you, June. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. Are there any additional business to be added to this meeting?
Madam Chair, if I could, I'd like to maybe just give a bit of an update on my thoughts going into council. Right at the very end, maybe.
Update, so they will come and get it done. Thank you, Gary. Any other further? I just very briefly going to ask our Manawhenua to just give a brief corridor on her visit to the Pokai at Pukenui Marae. Okay, with this? Just her brief experience that she had there. Thank you.
Thanks, Te Marama. Yeah, it was a privilege to be invited to the Pukai at Hukanui Marae by Te Marama organised Erin to speak on my behalf, and of course Paula Southgate here in Cumberland City was also there, so we were welcomed together. And of course, Paula and I had gone to school together, which I'd shared that with Erin, so at Hamilton Girls High. So it was a special occasion, though, for that opportunity. And I got to sit by Sarah during the kai. It's Hone's significant other, so it was nice to meet her and chat with her for the first time. And it was a special celebration, 125 years, which was that was amazing. And then to hear the King's Korero later on. And of course, I was lucky. I sat beside, actually during the initial proceedings, I sat beside Parakawhia McLean, so it was great. She sort of just talked things through with me along the way. Of course, I knew Parakawhia anyway through other things, so that was great. And we caught up with Moana afterwards. And yeah, it was a really special day, and it was really hot, wasn't it? It was sort of muggy. It was the muggiest day I think of the year. So no, it was a real pleasure. And to be when they talked about the koramatua and then being the role and the Manawhenua being the person, I thought was actually quite a special moment to have that mention. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
I think this is where the koramatua has been the name that they've used for mayor, and that name didn't go well down for me for female mayor. So it was announced at that Pukai. This name Manawhenua came from the King's office. So this is what we'll use for woman mayor. And now Manawhenua. So this is how this came to be. So yeah, thank you, Adrian.
There's a few of us, women.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially
but there's a like that's all in our area. There is, yeah. So we headed to me. Number 5, the confirmation of minutes. Right, move it, please. Someone that moved the previous meeting that was present at that meeting. If no one, I'll move. I'll have a seconder. Thank you, Jill. All those in favour say aye. Any matters arising from those minutes? I'd like just to put on notice, if you can recall, there was a report from the Moranza Recreation Ground. They had the name Tua Hotene. I have asked to remove that name for the time being until we do more research with Ngāti Hoa and Ngāti Wairere. Just bring that to your concern. I had concern both our Ngāti Hoa other representative too had concerns about that. So we're going to meet with Ngāti Wairere and we'll come back with a general name that's going to suit both iwi. That our Tumaki is here. He will be part of the discussion when we get there. Are there any? Hello? If not, has moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, carried. 6.1. Kia ora,
yes, I would like the report to be received with the Manawhenua to Iwi Trust organisation, with the absence of the Ngāti Power representative at this time. A formal welcome will be done at a later date. That person is present among the panel.
Is it completed? Or we just, yes, Andrea?
Just checking you are taking the recover. Charitable Trust did not put forward the Ngāti Power.
It was a rush job, last minute thing.
Yeah. We'll formally welcome him when he attends the April meeting, hopefully. Yeah. Just receive it.
We're reading it.
Yeah.
Typo.
Someone move that the information be received, please. Jill. James, all those in favour say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. 6.2, an update on council's draft interim speed management plan. Is that you, Nigel? No?
Barry.
There's online, he just go now.
Actually,
There he is.
Here I am.
Morena.
Morena, kia ora koutou. Good morning, everybody. My apologies, it's a last minute change to work schedule, so I was going to front this this meeting, and unfortunately you got the virtual version of me, but I'll do my best to give you the best information I can possibly can. So I've swapped over the PowerPoint that I originally had intended to take you through the workshop PowerPoint, which I'll share with you now.
You might like to introduce Kathy, that's also
Jeanette.
Jeanette, I mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, and I'd also like to welcome Jeanette Underwood of Luke McCarthy Consulting, who's put together the speed management plan, and we've both been working very closely on this, so we capture everything. So the other thing is, I'm happy to take questions at any stage. I'll just, as I talk through the presentation, don't hesitate to ask if you've got any questions at that stage. So so if everyone's okay, I'll kick off now.
Carry on.
Okay, so the first slide present here talks to the interim nature of speed management planning. So we work in 3 yearly cycles. So the 2021 to 24 National Land Transport Program cycle is the one we're in at the moment. So you can see why this is interim, because it's starting 22 to 24, so it's not a complete cycle. So that's the point of that, and that's reinforced by this slide here. If you can see it clearly, there's a pre-interim period on the left, an interim period which we're in now, and the first speed management plan cycle, that basically when speed management plans can be put over to the regional council to manage thereafter, and they run in three yearly cycles there as well. So you go 2027 to 2030, 2030 to 33, and so on and so forth. So while a lot of work's gone into this particular interim speed management plan, we do have 3 yearly opportunities to review where we're at and adjust things. So it's a continual process of reevaluation. So is everyone comfortable on that?
Any questions? Carry on.
Okay, so the next slide talks about the reason, fundamental basis for speed management is to lower serious injuries and deaths associated with crashes. So we do know that speed is a factor, and the reason behind that is because that the faster you travel at, the greater the force. So therefore, the greater the force of collision tends to result in deaths and serious injuries. So by reducing speed down, we have the ability to have more control over the impact and therefore the resulting damage or carnage as a result. So this particular slide is our region, and it's at the bottom left, it talks about the social cost, which is massive. So $612 million, 51 deaths, and you can see all the other statistics there as well, you know, head-on crashes. So head-on crashes and side crashes are the predominant ones. So we try to engineer to avoid those types of crashes where we can. And that's why things like barriers, medium barriers are so critical to a lot of the work that Waka Kotahi's doing to prevent head-on crashes, and side-on crashes at intersections are also very, very, very dangerous and can result in a lot of deaths and serious injuries as well. So there's a lot of different interventions there. And this slide speaks to that. So basically, if we can, what we're trying to do is reduce the severity of the impact, and we can do it by reducing the likelihood of that occurring by actually changing the speed limits. And as long as people adhere to them, that's a worthwhile outcome. But we know that in not all cases people will do that. So sometimes we have to bring in, and we have to invest in infrastructure that will actually make an effort to slow them down. Now, this slide talks about the strategy, which is Road to Zero, and you've probably all heard of it via the media. So there's a lot of ads at the moment on television, and also you've probably heard radio ads as well. So it's all about a system approach. It's not one thing, it's a combination of things. So controlling speeds is part of it, and then vehicle safety, and then there's a whole view there of different aspects that contribute to deaths and serious injuries. So while it's extremely aspirational to make it a vision of zero, and you know, not everyone likes that, but you know, but the intention is there to bring speeds as low as possible. To bring the number of deaths and serious injuries down as low as possible. So the target was set at 40% by 2030. Now we all know that the number of deaths and serious injuries actually went the other way last year, which was shocking. So but the thing is that this program's long term, and it's not going to result in instantaneous change. It's something that will happen over time. So like any good strategies, there's actions, and these actions are necessary to implement. So the first one being investment in safety treatments and infrastructure improvements. So we've very much wrapped action 0, 1 and 10 to prioritise road policing together with our approach to tackling unsafe speed. So by predominantly using these three plus a whole lot of other initiatives, like, you know, encouraging people towards safer vehicles, and workplace health and safety by having good policy in place to encourage people to drive when they're refreshed rather than tired, those sort of things. So all of those help. So, but these are the main three. Okay, this is the rule. Now the rules set what we can and can't do, and they've gone through a bit of change. So the land transport rule is primarily to improve the planning, engagement, the consultation, and the implementation phases. So engagement consultation is very targeted, and we've gone through a targeted and principles focus because of our earlier workshop. We got clarification that council had a certain direction it want to take, in particular with schools in Kura and marae and also local roads. But the rule clearly outlines engagement with Māori and plans. As I said before, we work in 3-yearly implementation cycles, and our visioning, or our program of work, if you like, is a 10-year horizon. So we're always looking 10 years ahead. And we look at the whole network. We're not looking at street by street. We used to do that with our bylaw process, but the bylaw process was changed in favour of this approach, where we look at the whole network and we review it every 3 years. So for 2024 to 27 and beyond, as I mentioned earlier, we're working in these planning cycles. So the interim speed management plan process steps. So this is basically how it all kicked off. So we consulted Jeanette, and Jeanette's been on board for probably close to 12 months now. So it's been a big piece of work. We've been around schools and marae, schools, Kura, marae, and observed local road sites. We met with schools in Kura. We went there and we sat there and we listened to them, we talked to them, we found out everything we possibly could about everything that's going on in relation to those, how children get around, how things operate at the marae, what works, what doesn't, what are the risks. Then the project team working party were brought on board, and we had that from the outset, but then we refined it because when we were in workshop, we were asked to include some strategic guidance, and Councillors Dewhurst and Thomas joined us as representatives, and we're truly grateful for their insight because it made a difference in making progress on this. And then we finalised the planning framework. So that was the rules and the guidelines that came through from Waka Kotahi, and also our approach. And then we set about gathering information. So we did an initial review of technical evidence. We use a process called Megamaps, which has already been sort of it's a computer program, and it looks at all the risk of serious injuries and things. So it kind of gives us a bit of a heads up initially. Then we held those meetings and we went to site and we discussed on site with a lot of people about different things. So, and then we went back to the workshop, and we've refined again. So we're aiming for consultation a little bit later, very soon actually. But every opportunity along the way has been a chance to revisit new things. So as mentioned, focus schools, kura, marae, local roads, targeted for specific drivers for change. We're looking at not just putting up speed signs, we're looking at signage and infrastructure. So we know that not everyone obeys the speed regulations, and then our implementation plan. As mentioned, schools in Kura, we attended, there was 25 fronting our local roads. We are road controlling authority for the local roads. We're not a road controlling for a state highway. That's Waka Kotahi's role. So there's 29 schools in our district, all visited, covered speed limits, sign placement, road markings, supporting infrastructure, etc. Here's an example of a school kura. In this case, it's Tahuna School, and hopefully you can see this reasonably well. There's a lot of information contained on this slide, but we're using a lot of different interventions to try and bring speeds down. So a combination of signage, road markings, physical infrastructure, and coloured paint, things like that. Sometimes it's just the transition of the colour can, be enough to bring people down. Or sometimes we have to use variable signage, flashing signage. It depends on, it's a site-by-site specific need, if you like. So in total, we had 12 marae, 8 fronting local road and 4 fronting state highway. We reviewed each site and we looked at speed limits, signage, road markings, and the identification of any supporting infrastructure required. So here we have the marae Kaiati Mata on Kirione Road, and it's a great example of where there is a lot of traffic and a lot of complicating factors out there on that particular stretch of road. So we've got side road involvement here, and we've got Morrinsville in here, and we've got a lot of freight movements and things. We've got a rail line. Sorry, I don't know if my cursor's going in the right spot, but it's around about here. There's the rail line, and we were quite surprised to see how many rail movements existed. And then in discussing the marae and all of the movements around the marae, it's quite amazing how that functions and how we have to work around that. So we've put a proposal together to look at that whole area. This slide talks to the marae cultural signs that Waka Kotahi has put out and suggested that local authorities utilise. They're using them on the highway. There's an example down towards Lavinway of a advanced marae naming sign. So we'll be using those in our district as well, and they're very, very good. And there's also another sign that associates with the exact location of the marae. So this is an advanced sign. We also looked at town centres. So we looked at Matamata, Morrinsville and Te Araha. We looked at proposed speed limit changes. The idea with town centres is that, again, a lot of vulnerability. So people crossing streets, going to shops, going to businesses, both young people, elderly people, and people, adults in between those ages. So everyone's vulnerable when you're crossing a road. So it's important to focus on a speed reduction, changing the environment around that town centre, making it more of a pedestrian environment, a lot friendlier. There's opportunities for improvement there, including speed limits, additional signs and road markings, improved infrastructure, for example. Highlight was the safety of pedestrian crossings, because we've got a lot of variability with our pedestrian crossings. Some of them you think you can use and some you can't, because you're either giving way to cars or cars are giving way to you. So it's very, very confusing. So we need to fix that. Here's an example in Te Araha here. On the right, quite a good example of a pedestrian crossing with the zebra crossing. On the left, a very poor example where it's not clear whether it's a crossing or not. So a lot of people don't cross, and the road markings indicate it's raised, whereas I can't recall exactly, but I don't think it is, or it's very confusing anyway. So we want to get away from that, and the latest crossings are zebra like that, or alternatively what's called raised safety platforms, so that they kind of ramp up and then they flatten and then ramp down. So you've got a profile that elevates the pedestrian so that there's a degree of safety when crossing, and it's a lot more obvious to see. So that's what we're working on, that one. Now this is on the left, Morrinsville Town Centre. So we're focusing a lot around that. And on the right's an example that I took when I was holidaying, visiting my parents in Motueka in the Tasman Bay area. So that's quite a good one. They've got a nice clear town centre with the 30k and the red markings. So it's, when you're entering the town centre or leaving it. So we may be able to use a similar sign here. We want to get some sort of consistency going. And the idea is to just keep it as simple as we can and just make sure people know where town centre starts and ends. Now, local roads, we're careful here not to be too controversial, because this is not the only opportunity to look at speed management planning. So our focus was on roads with existing 70 km/h speed limits. So a lot of those actually all of them have gone down to 60 km/h, and in some cases they'll be supported by infrastructure. And we're also focusing on increased development. So our urban traffic areas, so where we're adding into subdivisions, we have to think about the environment. How does that fit with the existing environment? Therefore, what is the speed limit? Residential areas, we've currently got urban speeds that cover a lot of our residential areas. So we're looking at that. And district boundary roads, for example, where we have a road that joins with the Hauraki or the Waipa district, what is the speed limit that they've set, and how does that actually match with ours? So we have to have some communications with other district councils to make sure that we're aligned, because this is all about getting consistency and uniformity. So just to summarise the slides, it's been a targeted approach. We've been given clear direction on how we do it, and we've followed that. We're focused on speed limit areas rather than individual roads. And emphasis is on schools in Kura. Target completion date is December 2027. And available funding determines the extent of progress. So we get funded through financial assistance rates and different work categories through Waka Kotahi, through our investment framework. So we apply under those categories for, as we go about doing our work, and we get funded accordingly. So funding does change, and it's very highly likely that it will. So every 3-year cycle may be a bit different to what we expected. And then future reviews, as I mentioned, and that's pretty much the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Kia ora, thank you, Barry. And here, thank you. Any questions to Barry? Just first, Barry, I'm pleased to see that at Kaitamata, the marae, because I've seen many accidents there over the years, mainly vehicles coming from the Kivitahi Road.
Yes,
Turning up on the main. That's where most of the accidents happen, or turning into Kivitahi Road.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So it's always been a concern for us at Kaitamata.
Yeah, well, I reiterate what I said earlier, that we're going out for public. My next slide is the next steps, but the dates have changed slightly. They said they've changed a few times, so this slide's not up to date 100%, but shortly, very soon, we're heading out to consultation. And this is another opportunity to get involved and have a say. So please put the message out that we're keen to hear any other information out there that we need to know about, we can wrap into our plans. So we've had a few iterations. I'd like to thank Tuatahi for his involvement. He's been great at opening up our communication channel with iwi. And so that's more or less the process we're following. Rough consultation is, like I said, those dates are fractionally wrong now. And we've got deliberations and hearings, and it's been a long process, but it's been a very good process, and we've been very involved in it. And I think that's the long-term benefit, that we get to know our communities. So, so we do want to get it ticked off and certified, and then get on with some of these improvements that we want to make. So that's where we're headed.
Barry, I don't have my three in it. Probably not a question, just more of a clarification.
Thank you.
Probably not a question, more of a clarification. I think you covered it, but I just want to clarify. In the space of consistency and uniformity, is there communication and liaison with the likes of Kotahi and our other kainihera areas in the country? So, if you're going to be consistent, it'd be good if they're consistent across the country.
Yeah.
So you go to another district, then you got a different set of signs.
Yeah, I suppose to a degree we haven't got a huge amount. Like, we can only really say what we feel in that regard, and we've been pretty open about our process, and we've gone out acknowledging that while we don't look after the highways, any highways within our district, we're interested in them, and we're quite happy to have those conversations, but we're not the road controlling authority, so we have to be mindful of that. But we do have a relationship manager with Waka Kotahi who we talk to frequently, and she's been advised of our progress on an ongoing basis. So we continue to work very closely with Waka Kotahi, and it's not always, it's not a two-way street all of the time, but we do endeavour to open up those communication channels as best we possibly can. But you will get a degree of inconsistency throughout the country. It's just the nature of how it's coming together. But I think the program will settle down over time. I think you'll see more stabilised, sort of more, hopefully anyway, more consistent outcomes.
Yeah, I suppose the main reason for the clarification was, are there any moves to get a consistency throughout the country? Because, like you're working with Waka Kotahi, and there's an opportunity there through a national body to have some consistency across the country. I'm just, wondering, it gets a bit higgledy-piggledy if you don't know when you cross a district boundary and next minute the signs are different,
Yeah, well, there's two things I'd say in regard to that. One is we're working to a one network framework, which is a national framework across the country. And the intention there is that roads are categorised now. So whether they're in Southland or Northland, road types are sort of put under classification. So they'll have the same type of features, like the environment, whether it's windy nature of the road, or whether it's sometimes it can be like placement of power poles and things, like things like that. And how many vehicles it's carrying, and the type of road it is. So like whether it's a collector road or an arterial road, etc., whether it moves heavy vehicles or all that sort of thing. So there's a national framework for categorising. So that is designed to bring in consistency. Now, over and above that, it's also about regional councils will be getting involved with speed management planning, and their role will be to ensure that if there is misalignment between councils, they will aim to have those conversations to get consistency in place. So, for example, if Hauraki they had a road that they wanted to make 60 and we wanted to make 80, then there would have to be some sort of adjudication on that, and that would come from the regional council. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, sort of. It just, the key clarification I was after, is there anything in place, or is there a forum or a communications in place to have some consistency district council wise across the country? Otherwise, you are going to have changes.
All district councils will report essentially to a regional council in the area. So if it was, like in Waikato's case, we've got a number of districts within Waikato, and they were reporting to the regional council once that's in place. That would apply in Canterbury and Southland and Otago, etc. So you would hope that Wakatahi and regional councils are talking, and they do talk throughout the country. They have forums and various other things. So there is a lot of discussion going on throughout the country. So we would expect to see consistency.
Yeah, I suppose you've answered my query in that at the moment there is no moves to have a consistency across the country as far as regional or district councils go. But it's something that may happen.
Oh no, there is definitely moves to do. As I mentioned, the One Network framework is designed with that in mind, and the regional councils are tasked with their principal role is to achieve that regional buy-in, so that we don't have a mix where there's a lot of confusion. So whether you're driving in, for example, Southland or Canterbury, or up here in Wanganui or Northland or Hawke's Bay, you encounter a particular type of road, it should have the same look and feel as any other one of that category. So
you're talking about Aroha You're talking about with Wakakotahi, and not, just for clarification, not specifically urban areas within a district council.
No, I'm talking both. I'm talking local roads and state highway. So it's both. The One Network framework is in place across our district. So if we've got an arterial road for moving cars and heavier vehicles, then it'll have features that should be consistent with other arterial roads throughout the country. If we have collector roads for, you know, moving goods between regions and things like that, that should be the same throughout the country. So the intention is to be consistent. That's the whole purpose of it. And it is to look at traffic volumes and to look at the road environment. So, it's definitely been designed that way.
Thanks for that, Barry. But I was more focusing on the signage and the appearance of any, like you gave an example of pedestrian crossing. Just the signage is what it's gonna look like. Because what it's going to look like to somebody driving their car through a town.
Yeah. Well, you will. There is a lot of uniformity with signage. Like the signage, signs and manual guide is the same throughout the country. How you set out pedestrian crossings, for example, is the same throughout the country. There's a lot of standards around that. It's standardized that we can't just kind of. There is some degree of variability because there has to be. But overall, there is standards for all of this type of work that we're engaging in, so that we're implementing. So you would expect not to see too much variation, but by nature of towns being different, you know, you're going to get commercial signage that will look different. You'll have a different, shop frontages and things like that. Just the layout of the towns will be different. So you can't get everything right exactly the same, but within reason, it will be consistent throughout the country.
Got to think, Barry.
Okay.
Kapai wati.
Yeah.
He patarano, me kare. If there's no thing, we'll have someone move the report be received, please. Thank you, Leo. Second that. Gary. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Jeanette, for sitting in. And and again, I'll just reiterate that there's an opportunity there for further dialogue and receiving your feedback via the public consultation process as required. So if you after this meeting you go away and you think about something, by all means, that's your avenue. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. 7.1 Matariki, and we've got Jenny. Jenny. Yes. Morena, Jenny.
Morena. Thank you for the chance to talk to you this morning, and apologies that I wasn't able to be there in person today. So you should have the report there. Unfortunately, we were absolutely gutted to have to cancel the Waitangi Day event, or the Waitangi weekend whānau picnic and movie night that was scheduled for the 4th of February, because the event was shaping up to be very well supported and a really nice community event. But as you'll all be well aware of the significant weather events over recent weeks, we had to make a last minute call to cancel that, and we did that in consultation with both Jill and Hinarangi, who had been helping us with the planning for that event. And then in the discussions around postponing that, the question came up around should council be doing something for Matariki instead, and if the answer to that from the forum, if the views of the forum is that council should indeed be doing something, what might be an appropriate role for council to play? So that is what the report there that you have outlines, seeking guidance really from the forum as to what you would like to see, how you would like to see council approach Matariki 2023.
Thank you, Jenny. Any proposals to Jenny with this? It's not too far away, but we know it's going to be here upon us. For us, I'll just kick it off. For us, for Ngāti Haua, we have been celebrating this kaupapa back on our marae and back with the community up at our maunga, Mangakawa. And I think the feeling is for that to continue. So we would certainly like the support of the council. When we haven't had our discussions yet, but we certainly, the people do want that occasion to happen again, where we involve the community. Everybody came up to the maunga, so I think we would like to see that and have the council support. So I'm not about the other iwi, the other hapu. They may have the same whakaaro that they want to celebrate in their own particular area. I'm not sure whether we can have a collective celebration one, because I think the council need to look at if the other hapu or iwi want to hold an event. Maybe we look at if they're going to do that the council supports each kaupapa. And with ours, we had the schools. All the schools came up. They came up there at 5 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold. But they were just so proud to be involved and to witness what was happening up there at the mountain. So that's our thinking. That's our iwi thinking for this year. Anyone else have a whakaaro? Leo?
Kia ora, South Waikato, Tokoro, they have one year. We had one, I think it might have been 5 years when Jane Barnes was on. We partnership with Ngāti Hirarangi. But it was just, it was really good to see all our young rangatahi get together and just have a good time. And the support our kaupapa, the same as which guys went through in February. For me, I'd like to see kapa go hard. And all our kura kaupapas are doing it right now through the Pākehā schools. And it's about identity. And I know it's hard shifting it around, but we can't move where we are. But I like to talk to everyone. Hey, kia ora.
Anyone else? Kia ora, Jill.
Kia ora, Jenny. I suppose for council, just like you set aside a fund for a Waitangi Day event, being able to set aside a fund that would support your local iwi in your area to run Matariki event. There's other ways that council can support, working with the comms team, not only just sharing the social media content, but also helping to organise any events, things like working with councils to hold events on council land. For here, example, in the domain, what do we need to do? Having someone within council events team to manage all that, to be more enabling, would be really helpful, because we don't have all that capacity, and council knows what needs to be done in that sort of way. So yeah, I would like to see some sort of fund put aside for these really important events. So council investing in those events with iwi, and yeah, then us as iwi being able to work with council to utilise your capacity and capabilities to bring these events to the forefront. For us, as Jenny sort of put in the report, we're looking at we do our own thing as well. All we do, we all do our own thing, and we do other things with Hauraki iwi as well. But on on a community level, also having other events with the community is also something that all be we're looking at doing. So yeah, that support is where I'm at. Financial support committed by council each year, and then staff support. Okay. Kia ora. Yeah.
Totally what Jill's saying when we're talking about, it does open the conversation around, do we use the funding for this instead of that? Both of these events should be funded the same every year going forward. I remember last year there was a Matariki fund introduced, maybe $500 for iwi to put towards an event of their own. Yeah. So I think there needs to be a fund that's for iwi to do what they want and be empowered to do what they want for their own people. And then maybe something else for wider community as well. Well, no, there should be something for wider community. I know at our iwi table, we kind of sit there and go, it's a Matariki event. Do we have to share our funding with everyone? Can we just do something for ourselves that's to do for us? So we'll be doing an event for ourselves, for our own people at our marae. And then we are looking at doing a community event, maybe not a big fun festival this time, but more an educational process. So we've had the pleasure of working with a young waire from Hanley, so she's from Maikata Tainui, Hana Rāwhiti Maipi, and she wrote the Manawhenua book about Matariki. She's only 20, not even 21, and we have spoken to her about coming to do some sessions, just like last year we are here organised for Matamata-Piako to come and do some wānanga at the libraries. Similar to that, we would like something like that, where it's just another form of that education, but from another person, just to keep filling your kete. So that's something we'd like to do. And maybe that's a series that could be done on a joint. I understand what you're saying, but it'd be difficult to do a collective celebration and honour everyone's iwi, because it's not always done the same. But yeah, we'd like to do something like that. If anyone and support from the council would be good, because that's something that anyone could go to. But also, yeah, financial support in terms of organising an event for our own people.
So just a recommendation to the council.
Sorry, can I just ask though, is it something in the council corridor around continuing to fund Matariki and Waitangi Day, both events going forward?
Yeah. So in the last year, you were right, Hinerangi, that council made or sort of enabled iwi to apply for funding for Matariki events under the district events grant. And we are taking that policy back to council to review, and had specifically noted wanting to make provision for Matariki events or cultural events as an enabler or a policy criteria within that policy, because it wasn't under the existing policy. Right. I think late last year, I brought a report to the forum seeking direction from forum members to help inform our budget setting to go to council around what funding we should be considering as council was setting the budgets for 2023-24. And at that point, the forum flagged looking for funding opportunities to support the Hauriki Cultural Festival. But at that point, we didn't identify Matariki funding. So we haven't for the new financial year coming 1 July, there isn't funding earmarked specifically for Matariki. However, we would be able to address that through incorporating that into the events policy, district event funding, when that's being reviewed, and we could look at that going forward for the long-term plan to separate out Matariki funding as an item of its own, because the one challenge with it being incorporated in the district event funding is that it would then not be earmarked as such, like you're suggesting, so that I guess the Matariki events and iwi would be competing for funding against any other types of events. So I can make a note of that and look to raise it with council or discuss how we might specify funding or earmark funding in particular for Matariki, similar to what we have done for Waitangi Day in the past.
Yeah, that would be good to kind of get something that's a bit more sustainable for that in the future. I'd be really sad if we missed out on funding for their own events if, say, another community group were doing something, but then at the same time, it's nice to see other community groups embracing that kind of celebration. But I would like, I'd be saddened to see if iwi isn't prioritised in that funding pool.
Yeah, or with the district event fund, one of the challenges with that is there's not specific funding rounds. So at the moment, the fund is fully subscribed for the year. So you'd run the risk of getting to the point where the planning is beginning for Matariki events, but the funding has already run out. So looking at ways we could manage that to prevent that situation occurring.
Madam Chair, can I just make a comment? The council's creative arts grant is about to go out again to the community, so there might be an opportunity to create some projects around those funds to do a similar thing. And I think probably cultural and heritage, they got some funding for Matariki going forward. I'm pretty sure they did last year.
Yes, I believe the ministry.
Actually, apply for those, can't we? We don't have to go through the council.
No,
Yeah.
But we do want council support.
Yeah, and Councillor Thompson's absolutely correct that the creative communities funding applications are currently open. I believe, I don't have the date off the top of my head, I believe it's till about the 15th of March. So if anybody's looking for funding, those grants are currently open and absolutely are supportive of cultural events. And I know Ngāti Tumutumu have successfully applied for that funding in 2022. I think some others may have as well.
Thank you, Jenny. We can a decision to make a recommendation to council. The Manawhenua Forum recommend council. They're looking for a recommendation.
Yeah, I think the recommendation is along the lines of maybe just that we recommend that the fund that was set aside for Waitangi is redistributed to iwi for Matariki events. Okay. I just don't know how you do that.
Is it for iwi events or community events? Because that, I think the Waitangi funding would have been community event.
Depends. What is classed as a community event? Is like what Fire's saying, do they hold an event and then they invite some schools along? Does that count as a community event or just
When we hold these, we can't exclude them. Yeah. They want to be included, so
Can I So I was going to say, can I suggest for you the resolution may be that council could play a support role to others delivering Matariki events, and that option in the report considered financial support and promotion, and also perhaps other in-kind support like Jill had mentioned around helping deal with some of the red tape if it was on a council reserve or that sort of thing.
And probably just to specify how you go about that. Is it by application or is it just by emailing and saying it's happening?
We'll take this, I guess we'll take the forum's recommendation back to council to confirm whether they're happy with the reallocation of that funding and what process they would like us to follow in that. Because it is likely a grant application, just to give us the paper trail around that process.
We have read that out. Definitely.
Yeah, so I've just put that Team Manawhenua Forum recommend council play a support role to others delivering Matariki events, community for Matariki 2023. And that would incorporate everything that Jenny just
said. For Matariki 23. You're happy to move with that, Poti?
Just a comment to make it more durable. Perhaps maybe can look at whether it's a creative arts funding, whether it's a cultural fund, or whether it's a community event fund. That it's incorporated in that, and a review is done to see whether that is sufficient to cater for the events that its people are applying for, rather than I just get a bit messy if you've got a Matariki fund and a Waitangi Day fund, but if you've got a community fund, event fund that has a list of, Matariki, Waitangi Day, Diwali Festival, whatever, and groups that it's set up to cater for.
Do you think that you want to do that now? Specifically when you're talking about Matariki, in your view?
Yeah, I think that I support the resolution to reclassify that money that was set aside for Waitangi Day, but I thought our conversation had gone a bit wider than that.
What's the view of the forum? The card or
yeah, that's mine. Anyway, kia ora.
So we don't have to come back all the time and
yes.
Something that's really
So I think probably this resolution is for this year, and I think there's an opportunity for council and its long-term planning around where funding sits going forward, and that's where that submission process and understanding, because like our events fund is, I think it's 20,000 a year, but it's helping with like Christmas parades or cruisins and different events like that. It's a general fund that you apply for, and of course it's gone for the year. So I think there's a conversation to be had around how best we can celebrate these significant moments, days. They are significant in a more structured way, because it's a little bit hit and miss with our events funding, to be honest.
Yeah, to that, we are looking at reviewing the entire grants framework as part of that upcoming long-term plan. So it could potentially be wrapped into that. You might need to just address this particular issue for now, but look for a wider solution
going forward. Be more clear. So like I said, it's not so piecemeal and
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. I think that's what my thinking was.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Andrea.
So Matariki is like it's changing. It's becoming like there's just a huge interest out there in the broader community that wasn't there 2 years ago. And so I think I would like to have council just reassess where it sits in the framework of events. And it's a great one because, it's a celebration of a new year coming up. And I think, there's like that real sense there that the community, I'll guarantee you, are going to get more and more interested in this as an event. And my experience at Rokawa was how thrilled everybody was that was when it was actually made into a public holiday. There was a real sense of recognition, I think. So I just think that when we do look at reviewing your events policy, just to start to recognise the importance that this event is likely to take in the minds of the broader community. Kia ora.
Thank you, Andrea. Any other further comments? We've heard the resolution. We'll leave it as was read out. So remove it, please. Thank you, Julian. Seconder. James, all those in favour say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
My question is, that's Jess gone, but I'm sure staff can take it, just ensuring that the kaupapa that we've talked about is put on some agenda going forward to ensure that what we've talked about, there's a trigger to make it happen, doesn't get lost in the copious paperwork. Absolutely. Thanks.
I am still here, and yes, absolutely. So I've made a note of that, and will follow that through with Niall around the grants review and making sure we're factoring that into the long-term plan process. So, thank you.
7.2, the annual plan 23-24 and policy bylaw consultation update. And I believe we have in Niall. Thank you, Niall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is report is to just essentially provide a brief overview to the forum on our annual plan and some upcoming consultations. So our annual plan for this coming financial year, we are not formally consulting on that. As essentially there is no significant change from what was set out in the long-term plan. But there is several documents which we will be putting out for public feedback next month. The first one of those is the local alcohol policy. So Laura in our team has previously spoken to the forum about this one. And essentially this is the policy document that sets out how many liquor outlets there can be, the trading hours of those, where they can be located in the district. And so there has been an update made to the local alcohol policy, and we've taken on board feedback from the police, the licensing inspectors, and the health authority. The solid waste management bylaw is another one that we are also putting out for feedback. This one is really an update to reflect the fact that we are entering into a new curbside collection contract, and there's quite a number of changes that are occurring in that space. The speed management plan, so Gary just spoke about that earlier in this meeting, will also be going out for consultation, along with the fees and charges. So every year we update our schedule of fees and put them out for consultation. So this report really just gives you an overview of those. We will be reporting those to Council on the 8th of March to get approval, and then we'll be releasing them for public consultation. So really we're just seeking the feedback from the forum as to how we can best engage with iwi around these topics during the month-long consultation period that we have. Thank you.
Any Piako? Questions of Niall?
I think really want participation, engagement in these policies, because they obviously affect everybody. So if there's a way that we can engage more effectively with Manawhenua, would be really appreciate your some guidance.
That's a big question, because each one is all different, and each one's all busy, and that's right. But we will try to ensure that we get this engagement, especially the
that's important.
The fees and the charges. When you say fees and charges, you're talking about the overall.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So this is fees from covering everything from entry to swimming pools. So one of the proposals that council's been looking at is removing the overdue fines for library books. So going fines free at our libraries. So that's something that's being looked at. Yeah, really, it's just fees across the board. Yes.
Okay. If there's no further questions of Niall, I'll have someone move the report, please. Joe, seconder. Leo. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Noel. The next, the district plans update. Is it the sheet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, everyone. So I'm here to provide an update on our district plan and all the exciting projects that we've had, that we've been working on. So I'll do part of it, and then Ellie will pop down and provide an update on some of the other projects as well. So first up is our Papakainga plan change. So we had been open for submissions up until the 13th of Feb. It was wonderful to see what, such an extent people had supported this plan change. We had 54 submissions, and only 12 of that was either decline or decline with changes. 42 was support or support with changes, which is tremendous. So that was wonderful to see. The concerns that came through were changes in rural character, traffic or safety concerns, and concerns and questions around services and both on-site and council services. So yeah, 54 in total, which was great. We are looking at opening for further submissions in the 3rd week of March. We're still finalising that timeline, but we're looking at around 21st to 23rd of March to open for further submissions, and that will stay open for 10 working days. Any comments or questions? Good, Gary.
So the submissions you've received, will they help modify the next round of consultation information?
Well, with the further submissions, they do inform us, and we see what common themes are, and each submission has legal weighting. So yeah, we have a look at each one and work out what it is that's come through in the submission and how we can proceed. A lot of the common themes, of course, have can be bundled together, but some are very site specific, so they do need to be looked at. Yeah.
Is the numbers of responses consistent with other change?
54. So we the only one really that I've got in mind is Lockerbie, and we've had a great engagement with Papakainga, but also this is a district-wide plan change. So yeah, so I think the missions is quite a good engagement, and also really good support, fortunately, of that.
So just to give you some context, Gary, like we had about 38 for Lockerbie. We had a settlements plan change some time ago. We got 60. So it's in the ballpark for us in regards to consultation. I know some of our bigger brothers and sisters next door get like 300 submissions and those sort of things, but that's not, we've never seen that within our district.
Any other questions? Okay.
So is your summary of submissions available online?
So that's the next step. So we're just currently doing a timeline for summary of submissions and then going out for an extra 10 days for further submissions. So no, not at this stage. We're just summarising at this point in time.
Okay. So we'll move on to our Lockerbie update. So Lockerbie was plan change 56, so it's now operative in our district plan. From 31st of January, the biggest changes really to the district plan is the inclusion of a chapter 17 for the medium density residential zone. So that's something new that's to our district plan. We've also got changes to our Lawrenceville map 26, and we have the development area plan that is included in our district plan as well. any questions about the Lockabee plan change? And next up is our Hauraki Golf Forum. So unfortunately our meeting that we had scheduled for the 6th of March has been cancelled, and we are looking to reschedule that. And that's given the state of emergency response. They felt that in light of what people have to work with and the recovery efforts, that we could probably afford to put the information forward in emails. Not much of an update there, apart from I felt that I would want to share this with you guys. So in 2020, Hauraki Golf Forum members supported riparian planting, and this would cover the northern aspect of South Waikato right through Matamata-Piako District Council, Hauraki and Thames Coromandel, plus all the islands that are involved in the marine park catchment. So in total, at the end of 2025, they're looking at having 12,000 kilometres of planting done, which is quite amazing. And they did an update at the end of last year and found that we have a remaining 5,900 kilometres. So we're just over halfway, which is great. So we're on track to have done quite a lot of planting there. And that's it for the Hauraki Golf update. Any questions around that? Oh, Gary.
Can I just ask what are the key agenda items that are featuring in the forum?
So the Hauraki Golf Forum, it's sort of like we look at everything to do with the Hauraki Golf Marine Park catchment. So at the moment, there's a couple of options to submit on the fisheries plan changes, keep an update on all these sort of volunteer projects that we've had in the riparian planting at Wellington. We've also had a evaluation, so we're carrying out a floor evaluation of the marine park, and the idea with that is to hopefully lead to greater protection. So Waikato Regional Council, NPI, WRC, they have met with economists to sort of work through that. Yeah, so that's sort of what we get up to at the forum, and it's a meeting that we have in different areas, and we get updated on what the latest projects are, what we could submit on. So Councillor Sainsbury has been appointed as our council representative, and I'm I guess the technical officer, so we provide the reports and things like that.
Probably just one more question. So this strong Māori contingent on the forum. Do they have a is there a Māori strategy or a corporate strategy within the Hauraki Forum, or is it all consensus?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So towards the end of last year, there was a voting on the government's model going forward. Up until recently, it sort of has not been a co-governance model, but that will be a shift going forward, and so we're going to have greater Māori participation. And yeah.
Sorry, it's not so much the co-governance that I'm asking about. It's just really whether the Māori representatives have a clear strategy in terms of Māori outcomes for the Hauraki Golf.
Gary, I probably would need to check with Nicola, who's our co-chair on that, and you can provide an update at the next meeting. That's all right. Kia ora, I think that's so I'll pass over to Ellie, who will provide an update on the remaining plan changes.
So kia ora, the first plan change I'll start on is plan change 49 of Waharoa. So this plan change seeks to review the zoning and development controls within the Waharoa township. To date, we've had a preliminary hui, which was held in partnership with Ngāti Hoa to look at the main issues and options, and what resulted out of that hui was actually a high-level spatial plan. to ensure that that high-level spatial plan was representative of the community's aspirations as well. We actually had another hui on the 30th of November, where we had an open day where people could come in, we asked certain questions. It was hosted at the Kura within Waharawa, and we had a wonderful event, and it was really well attended. We're currently, in addition to the hui, we also had an online presence. There was a questionnaire that asked some of the same questions that we asked at the hui, and that was open for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, due to staff resigning, we are still collating that information, and we hope to get back with the governance group within the next month or so to continue to progress that plan change. One of the things that is touching on a number of plan change is the introduction of the National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land, and that's a national policy direction that has come out to protect class 1, 2 and 3 soils. It came out late last year in November, and the guidance material was actually a Christmas present and came out, I think, the 21st of December. So we're still working through that. It has changed the framework that we're working under and will affect a number of plan changes. One of those is Waharawa. In regards to any questions on the Waharawa plan change? Moving on to the Calcutta plan change. Calcutta is a private plan change, so it's an application made to council to rezone approximately 40 hectares of industrial land against the Mangawhero stream in Matamata on State Highway 24, adjacent to our transfer station. So that plan change was last year accepted to go through the process, the plan change process by council. We notified inviting submissions late last year, and we're just about to go through the second phase, which is to advertise the summary of submissions, inviting further submissions. And our time frame for that is to invite them from the 7th of March. That plan change, again, is affected by the new framework we're working under for highly productive land. I'll keep going if there's no questions on that. Another private plan change is plan change 55 for Fonterra. It's looking to update the noise control boundary for the dairy factory out in Waitoa. That application has been in for some time. We have requested further information to make sure the application meets the requirements of the Resource Management Act, and that was only just supplied to us recently. We're working through that information that was supplied. If that information meets the criteria, then we'll be bringing it back to council to accept it and therefore invite submissions on that private plan change. Another private plan change, another application was from an Avenue Industrial Park. Their proposal is to zone approximately 14 hectares on the western side of Morrinsville, adjacent to the existing industrial zone. So that application has been made. We have requested further information, and we have got a number of that information, and we're just working through it. Again, like plan change 55 for Fonterra, the next steps would be to bring it to council if it meets the requirements of the Resource Management Act, to seek acceptance of that plan change or notification. The other thing just want to touch on that we're working on in the resource management space is our housing and business assessment. So our housing and business assessment is a strategy to make sure that we're providing enough zoned residential, business and industrial land for our community to grow. It's a document that is provided for under the National Policy Statement for Urban Development. Again, this is a document that has been affected by the introduction of a new National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land, and we're just updating that at the moment. So our current information on what we need to meet our community's needs for residential, business and industrial land is on our website, but just letting you know, we now need to look through the NPS for highly productive land lens and need to update that in accordance with that new policy direction.
Can I just ask a question, Madam Chair? Just around the new policy for class 1, 2 and 3 lands. How's that likely to affect our aspirations or my aspirations for Matamata-Piako?
So there is a exclusion for Māori freehold land.
Including general land held by Māori?
I would need to double check that, but I have done a review of our Papakainga plan change and I believe it hasn't had an impact on that. But I can double check that and come back to you, Gary.
Any further pipeline? Andrew?
So Matamata-Piako is tier 3 district, right? Is Matamata-Piako District Council going to be doing like a growth strategy or anything to look at how to accommodate growth across the entire district? I know at the moment it's, you know, Lawrenceville that's triggering that. Is anything in that sort of arena being done?
So at this stage, we haven't committed to a growth strategy, but we have done our housing and business assessment. So that's worked on the supply and demand of land. What that hasn't said that that land should be zoned here, there, or over here. What it's done is sort of come to the figures of what we will need, what area of lands we will need to provide for the next 30 years. As a tier 3 council, we are part of Future Proof. And if you were a tier 1 and 2, you needed to add 20% in addition to your demand. However, with the National Planning Standard for Highly Productive Land, because we're only a tier 3 council, we have to take that 20% out. So that's one of the changes we're looking to our housing and business assessment. The other aspect that we're just reviewing at the moment is that we have a lot of industries that happen in our rural environment. For example, dairy factories, transport depots, and those sort of activities. The National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land says they need to be directed to our industrial areas. However, we've never really seen them in our industrial areas, and I'm asking the market economics to redo their assumptions to make sure that those are provided for in our industrial areas. So we're doing quite a bit of work in that space, just on the data at this moment, not picking areas for development.
So given Matamata-Piako District is part of Future Proof, I know Future Proof is doing sort of like an overall strategy. Are they including, you know, the detail, down to the detail of whereabouts it might be used to be placing those sorts of you know, land zones within the district, or is it more high level?
It's more high level. Yes, we are working with Future Proof in terms of a future development strategy. That doesn't get down to property level, it's more bubbles. Over here we'll have some growth and over here we'll have some growth, rather than actually getting down to that property level, and that will come when plan changes are initiated.
Answer your question.
Yes, it answers the question, but there is, to me, there's an opportunity to identify where best things might go, and this is a good opportunity to do that. I was just curious as to whether Matamata-Piako was going to do that, because the thing is, under the downside of the Resource Management Act is that it's demand related, and it's just like motivated landowner decides they would like to do something and really pursues it hard out, rather than council going, you know, what would best fit for that infrastructure, what would best fit for the community is not that, it's something else. And a growth strategy gives the council the opportunity of pointing towards certain outcomes. So to me, it's an opportunity that the council might like to consider.
So if I could just add that the future development strategy does achieve that. And while it's not called a growth strategy, it does say this is the area taking into consideration all aspects, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's biodiversity, whether it's connectivity. The future development strategy will identify bubbles that these are the best places, and this is where we're going to focus our 30-year infrastructure policy on and those sort of things. So yes, we will get down to the level of indicating the area, but it won't be to a property level if you're between the 10-year and the 30-year time frame. We need to provide up to 10 years worth of growth, and so that's what our housing and business assessment will identify, and we will identify those to a property level, but between the 10 and the 30-year will be the locations, but it won't be at a property level.
Excellent. Thank you, Ellie. Any further pātai? James, you may happen to move. James, I have a second, please. I'll second that. Okay. And I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. 7.4, and I think we've got Stephanie that's going to lead us through this. Oh, Niall. Thank you, Niall.
Sure thing. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is really just an update on the work program that the forum has set and how we're tracking against those items. And we've also included the upcoming agenda items for your April meeting and the subsequent meetings here for this year. So really just placing this to this committee for your information and any feedback.
Okay.
Just reflecting on the items in the schedule, I guess we're going to have that discussion about the heads of agreement review, and I'm wondering that after some conversations we've been having at council, whether we, I guess, take the opportunity to discuss how we start to put our priorities in the program, rather than just addressing all councils, I guess, work program, which is essentially what the schedule does. So just taking the opportunity for iwi to one and determine some priorities like proper kind, like treated like aspirations like that. So, and how we might factor that in going forward.
Yes, I think we talked about maybe having this consultation with. We're going to look at some dates. Yes, and there are a couple that I've spoken to Stephanie about, and I hope you can consider these dates. This would be the 18th of April, and the other would be 16th of May. There's a couple of dates that we proposing. I think this is what you're suggesting, Gary.
So is that a wānanga?
Yeah.
Yeah. In here or on Marae or somewhere? Or?
Well, I thought here we can if the Marae can be available, but yeah, let me come back here. Okay.
Just check with fun. All I'm saying is that's just if you have to think about nothing. Yeah. Sorry, what are those dates again?
16th of May, 18th of April, and 16th of May. Tuesday. Yeah, the Tuesdays. Something out later. Okay. that's the last of our scheduled
What we can do
items.
from after you've had that one and on whichever day, whether it's the 18th of April or the 16th of May, we can put this to the 6th of June forum meeting to consider it. Or endorse whatever's been discussed.
Yes, I move that work program be received. I have a seconder, please. Thank you, Leo. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, carried. As I said, that's the last of our agenda item. I'm just going to the late item, Gary. At this moment over to you, please.
Well, today at the meeting at the meeting, Amalai o tātou nei rohe, ngā iwi o tātou nei rohe. Nā putou rā, hei whaka wātea nei tēnei tūni mō, I roto I o kote nei tautoko. So just want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the iwi for just the role you all played in making sure that I was the only participant in the race for the toro and just to say thank you to all of you for that mahi. But in terms of a bit of an update, it's been a real challenge, for me personally. The conversations are really well, if I might just share, and I spoke to James earlier on, because one of the things that we've been talking about, and particularly around the fees and charges discussion, is the notion of equity. And so, when our libraries get so much resource for 20% of the population, where's the, just the ability to have conversations about equity around how we do some of these things, and our ability for our kaumātua to access our pools. I know it's done really well in here in Te Aroha, but over in Morrisville and probably in Matamata, those elements aren't, our kaumātua aren't being served in the same sorts of ways. So just being able to sit at the table and raise issues of equity and protection, I guess, of some of our tikanga and wānanga. So, but yeah, just wanted to acknowledge you all for that and just raise some of those things. What I wanted to do was ask someone to send me an invite to come to a hui, just so I can sit with you fellows on the marae and share chocolate cakes and things like that. Whatever you fellows are good at cooking. So, but yeah, just to come wānanga and hear some kōrero. So that's really all I wanted to share. So just to let you know that it's hard work. It's all gone grey. That's why I chop it on.
It's complex, isn't it, Gary?
It's complex.
It doesn't matter where you come from, you get into council, it's complex. And then when you want to, have a kōrero, it isn't always.
I guess probably the other thing that I would add is, from my perspective, this role is a 3-year-old and then maybe and a 6-year-old, because that's all it's guaranteed under the way it's current structure. So, I mean, I've determined that there's got to be a couple of things that I need to just focus on, and all these other things that go past. I try not to dive too deeply into them, but contribute in a way that's going to serve the whole community, but more to focus on just a couple of key things that will actually move the dial for us, Māori in Matamata-Piako, over that period of 3 years and maybe 6 years. So yeah. So through this one that I'd like to have in terms of our agenda items, that's where those priorities, I hope to hear what they are, so I can drive those initiatives.
If we do go back to the marae. Thank you, Gary. That brings us to a closure of our meeting before we bring our manawhenua in, the Hamilton and Waikato tourism team and the Microsoft. Are they here? Yes. Just before that, we'll just close this. I'll just kia ora tātou. Thank you for everyone's attendance this morning. And kia koe hoki te rangatira te tūmaki, tēnei e mihi ana kia koe e noha ana koe he walinu I tēnei te manawhenua o Matamata-Piako. Kia koutou Manawhenua, me te koromati wa tuarua, tēnei e me ana kia tātou katoa. Reira hui no, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia koe Gary mā he whakakapi tēnei wahanga.
Pēno kōti pai te tātou nei wahanga, kei nui tātai. Nā e chatua whaharau. Tēnā o pono matāne, pono na wahine, koe piko nei u tuaru o tau korori e tēnei ata. Te ko whakamoini te whakawhetai te kia koe tau aroha tau mana te tau katoa i nei kani mātai. Koro hia nei, tau ngā tapai kirunga runga e taka ana i roto te ngā ākua tango tēnei ngā i nero ngā rā. Nō re re te atua koteri nei, nā ina kia koe kia tō tai nei kia waingi o matu kia tai pai whai. Kia matu i roto tō matu ni kāina. I roto i tēnei, ngā whakamoiwiti kia koe te atua ki roto tau i matapu. Amen.
Kia ora, welcome to the